Well, a very good morning to you all from slightly cloudy San Francisco. I hope it's a little bit more pleasant wherever you are today. My name's Simon Thompson. I'm the Cloud Networking Technical Evangelist here at Cisco Meraki, and today we are going to run through the latest quarterly session. So let me just get the slides up and then we can make a start. So many windows on my computer right now. Okay, let's get rid of that one and that one. Okay, so welcome to quarterly number 4. I can't believe it's the 4th one of the year already. We've had a very successful year. We've had great attendance on these, so thank you very much for your continued support. We really do appreciate it. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, we really do welcome you along to the Meraki Quarterly. This is really not so much of an introductory webinar. It's more of a kind of get together with the team, a chance for our product team to reach out and speak to you directly, to give you a little update in each case around exactly what is going on in their own space. And as always with Meraki, there's always good stuff to talk about. So without further ado, we will get things rolling. We will see how long this goes today. I'm not sure if we'll need the full hour, but we'll get things rolling. And first up today, we will have a wireless update with our very own Matt Landry.
Wait a minute, Simon, I'm so confused. I just saw this big SM logo on the screen, and here I was all expecting to sit back, relax, listen to June talk, and now it's a wireless update? All right, we'll go with it. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matthew Landry. I'm the product manager for wireless. Happy to be here chatting with you. And I have a slightly different format for today's discussion. And if we have someone monitoring Q&A, my goal here is to give you a bit of an introduction to the MR product team, because you've probably heard my voice on every other quarterly, so it's probably a bit boring and monotone by now. So I'm going to introduce some of the other members of the MR product team, and ultimately open up the floor to some Q&A coming in from you guys, because I know we always get cut relatively short at the end. There's so much material to discuss that I want to give a little bit more time for questions. And so while you're thinking of those questions and sending them in the chat window, we'll be collecting those on this side. And while you're thinking of those real brain busters to send over here, I'd like to introduce the product team, of course. And so myself, Matthew, I'm the product manager, but more importantly, I'd like to introduce you to Eric Mossman, product specialist for the MR team.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing?
That was really Eric. That wasn't me just doing an impression of Eric.
Although I think you have done a good impression in the past of me, so.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But carrying on, we also have Colin Lowenberg, who is not in the room right now because he's working on other important things as well. And so we've given him a pass for this session.
Howdy, everyone. I'm joining in remotely from the field.
Oh, Colin, you're here. Excellent. Well, welcome. Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be a part of this MR team. I've been deploying our competitor networks for almost a decade now. And when I got my hands on some Meraki gear, I saw the light, and I'm very happy to be a part of this team.
A very penitent member of the team, I'm sure. Now that we've gotten the 2 killer product specialists out of the way, there are also the other 2 members of the team who are joining us today. Of course, there is Murray, who's in the room, and he really keeps us grounded throughout the week. Murray's here every single day, even when we're not, making sure that we can find our way back to our desks. If we ever get a little bit too bored throughout the day, we can go for a quick walk. It's great having Murray around. And then Petey, who has joined us on the previous webinars, he's also another vital member of the MR team. So, myself and these 4 handsome gentlemen on the screen, that pretty much covers the full MR product team. So hope everybody gets a chance to, if you see Murray walking down the street, you recognize his face and you're able to say hi. So with that, we'll jump into some Q&A and take a quick look at it to see what sort of questions have been coming in. And give me just a minute. Let me pull some of those up. All right, great. We have a quick question that came in about layer 3 roaming on the wireless access points. Now, this is a feature that we've, of course, had VPN concentrator to the MX-based layer 3 roaming on the MRs for quite a while. And we also introduced what we call distributed layer 3 roaming, which operates without a concentrator. The APs are able to hand off clients to each other using a distributed roaming algorithm. And it's been marked beta for quite a while, in fact. So what we've done is had that out there for a lot of customers to try out. And folks want to know, is this ever going to be out of beta? That's a great question. Love it. Very timely, in fact, because we very recently, thinking about some of the higher density deployments we've been doing, some of the successes there, we very recently christened distributed layer 3 roaming as a full production feature. We've taken the beta designation off of it, and it's pretty much in prime time. We had a look, and there are literally thousands of customers that are making use of the distributed layer 3 format today. And of course, the follow-up question, is it documented? Eric, is it documented?
That is a great question, Matt. Now, we've been quickly ramping up a lot of our documentation, and included in that is one really, really good article on the layer 3 roaming solutions. So the article goes over why you would want layer 3 roaming within your network, what type of use cases and customers are applicable, and then the different options and use and particular use cases, like if you wanted to use it for voice or what type of clients traffic you're going to be passing on the SSID, and which one would be best for you. So we have a great document. It's called the Layer 3 Solution Guide. It is hosted on our new documentation platform. That's at documentation.meraki.com. And there's also, that's paired with a bunch of other great new articles that we've been releasing pretty much consistently. So definitely encourage you guys to take a look at that one.
It's actually a nice segue to another question I've seen, asking about more detail, more depth on the Meraki AutoRF algorithms, understanding how the automatic channel changes happen, how the automatic TX power adjustment happens, what are the targets, what's the adjustment algorithm look like. So is that similarly, Doctor, does that fall into that category of new documentation?
Absolutely, Matt. And while we wouldn't expect that to be part of the Layer 3 document, we do have, right in that same documentation system, there's two great articles, one on channel assignment and one on AutoTX. And both are really, really detailed, going over even the event log messages that will show up in the event log when a particular channel gets changed and why it got changed.
So I have a question that I want to interject here. This one's aimed at Colin, in fact. Colin, if you had to be a non-wireless Meraki product, what would you be? What's your favorite?
I think you're trying to put me into a hole. This is a trick question. Obviously, you know that I have some affection for Systems Manager because of its capability to install certificates easily across an entire organization, which to me seems like a wireless feature, but really, you need an MDM or you need a client management tool to install certificates and manage that whole certificate installation and renewal. And so I really do like Systems Manager, especially when it's paired with what we call Systems Manager Sentry, which is on our Wi-Fi page as one of the options for a splash page. So you select Sentry, and then you can deploy certificates to every mobile device or Windows or OS X and connect them right to your wireless network with about just three steps. You can deploy secure certificates.
So you'd want to be a piece of software? We have all these beautiful pieces of hardware to choose from, and you choose the intangible software product. That's pretty killer. I love it.
Well, I mean, if you look at what happened before Meraki, all of that was hardware, right? You had to have a certificate authority, a Radius server. You had to build a huge VMware infrastructure to run all those VMs. But all that's in the cloud, so it used to be hardware, so I like it because I'd like to be the cloud, I'd like to be the cloud data center that provides your certificate and secures all your devices. So yeah, I guess I want to be software.
You are the wireless product specialist, right?
Yeah.
This is June. I've told him before that he joined the wrong team. You're welcome to switch over, Colin.
Hey, wait a minute. We're not going to have a very public battle for product specialists here. All right. So maybe a slightly more serious question, and Eric, I'll let you answer this one as well. So some questions about what's the mesh performance look like on different Meraki access points, and do we have a documentation, more detailed documentation on that? Since you have been talking about a lot of effort into trying to enrich the amount of collateral that we have online available to help users out and to help our technical community understand how the features work.
Yeah, Matt, that is a great question. And yes, we do have additional documentation. We have revamped the whole mesh document, going again over the UI and how to read what the mesh is doing. One of the things that you have to keep in mind with our mesh that sets us apart from other mesh solutions is that it's enabled right out of the box. There's nothing that you have to configure. You don't have to set up home APs or root APs. Like, all of that is done by the access points by themselves. So it's a really new and it's really intelligent platform or algorithm that is going to be handling the mesh routing for you. With that in mind, we've also created a mesh deployment guide so that you're most successful when you're deploying a mesh network or designing a mesh network when you choose the Meraki solution. So we've complemented the new Meraki mesh documentation with a Meraki deployment guide. And again, all of the documentation that I've been talking about today in this presentation is all hosted again at documentation.meraki.com.
That's a great URL. So simple.
It's pretty, yeah, we're not trying to hide anything. So it makes sense to put it there.
All right, so now the hard question for you, if you had to be a Meraki product, non-wireless, what would you be, Eric, and why?
Again, I think that is a trick question. I think, and not to be like not to choose favorites, I would choose Meraki as a whole, like the cloud and the dashboard. The dashboard is one product altogether. And if you imagine, if you get the MX, I don't think the audience can hear you. I think it's a one. They can only hear me right now. Anyway, so like when you buy the MX, when you buy the switches, when you buy the MR, when you buy the SM, you have the whole Meraki stack. You're just like Meraki is your product at your location. You have ultimate visibility from end to end, and you're pretty much guaranteed a secure network, whether the devices that are connected to your network all the way up to the edge of the gateway. So it's really the Meraki product would be my favorite.
All right, I just got waved off. Apparently, we've used up our time. Now, I'm actually going to take a hard stance. I want to be an MX. I love the MX. I love the way that it looks just so deceptively simple from the front. Oh, it's just this 1U or 2U rack mountable device. It's got a few ports on the front, beautiful clean interface, but there's all this complexity and cool feature set inside of it that you just can't tell from looking at the blinking lights in the front.
No, you can't. And that's why we also call MX the Wi-Fi switcher, because it does it all. So, good morning, everybody. This is Dahan, the veteran product manager for the MX. And if you've been following these quarterlies diligently, you know that I've been talking about IWAN for a while now, and it's becoming a reality. So right now we're at a stage where we're doing private betas with the IWAN, and we're going to have the first firmware release for IWAN for the general public in beta form in November, and that's going to allow you to essentially configure dual active VPN from any MX. All this basically covers all existing products, and it's actually going to be available with both advanced security and the enterprise license, and it will really allow you to double the VPN throughput and give you more reliability and flexibility. You can go to meraki.com/IWAN to learn more about the capabilities. But essentially, the configuration for that is going to become available in the dashboard in November. And we're also planning some nice summarization and UI reporting features, and those will be available in December. So if you're interested, please reach back out to us, and we can actually kind of share some preliminary documentation with you and put you in touch with our field SCs that can actually help you and guide you in terms of implementing the IWAN, at least in a POC manner. The other things that we've been doing behind the scenes is that we've added additional security capabilities into the product. So one of the cool things you can do now, especially if you have lots of locations, is that you can quickly run a security report on the firmware. So what that means is that you can go to the dashboard in the organization overview page, and one of the new columns that you have there is firmware security. So what that means is if your firmware has a known vulnerability, we will now say, hey, we have been notified by Cisco PCERT and InfoSec that the firmware had a known vulnerability that may have been disclosed by a CVE, and now we have a fix for that. So this really gives you, especially if you have, let's say, lots of locations and you want to know at any given moment in time, am I running the latest and greatest and most secure firmware? It's literally a couple clicks to get that report and understand if you're running the best and most secure firmware we have. So that's the firmware security report. We've added NetFlow support. A whole new VPN page is coming, which a lot more granular visibility in terms of latency, packet loss, and jitter. We've added multicast support between VLANs, IGMP version 3. And also, we've really sort of extended our VPN flexibility, our routing flexibility, so you can do a lot more things like sending route over the VPN or default route over a static LAN route. So, you know, if you had a proxy, if you had a content filtering solution that is other than MX, in the past, it was rather hard to essentially let the traffic flow through those third-party boxes, but this new default route sort of addition capability where you can say, hey, the default route through the internet is not through the MX, but it's through this VPN route or through this LAN route. Now that basically really gives you that additional flexibility for implementing those rather, you know, I'd say slightly more complicated architectures. So that's all we had on the MX, and you know, I want to keep it short and sweet. I just want to say that we're gonna announce some pretty amazing, crazy stuff in November. So stay tuned. So I just want to give a plug for the next quarter. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna look to my colleague and see if there's any major question for MX that just came through the portal. So give me 30 seconds if we can actually pull those up. Yeah, so there's a question about the AD performance when we do content filtering with Active Directory. This is from Daniel, and essentially he's saying that they're having some performance issues. Daniel, I'm aware of those. I'm going to look into them. I think you know, we definitely understand that AD and content filtering are sort of paired well together. In fact, even other products in the Meraki family are now sort of like using some of the MX AD integration. I believe System Manager has a way to kind of tap into the MX AD integration. So I'm going to specifically look into that. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there has been a bug where sometimes some of our queries are not very efficient if you have, let's say, more than 10, 20,000 students. So that's something that I think we can resolve in a short time. I'm looking at this. The hard number for 50 users on MX64, that's not a hard number, that's a recommendation. That's basically, when we say recommended for 50 users or recommended for 100 users, all we're telling you is that we've tested under those considerations and the box performed well. So you could technically put 5,000 people on MX64, you would lose a lot of packets and you'd probably have a lot of, you know, like unknown or unforeseen issues, but it's not like we're going to put a big red, you know, banner on the dashboard saying there's too many users. It's just that you should not do that. The NetFlow is sampled, and I think we have documentation. If you go to docs.meraki.com or if you go to kb.meraki.com, we have some great documentation on the NetFlow, which fields we're exporting and what's our sampling frequency. And yeah, NetFlow is available on all our products. And Jason's asking, when is the next product update happening? 64 is great, but limited to 200, getting fiber. So Jason, as you probably are aware, the time-honored tradition here is that I cannot comment on hardware roadmap except when it's ready. And suffice to say that we're working on new and exciting stuff every day. So stay tuned. And I think we have a lot in our sleeves between now and the end of the year. So we'll keep exciting you guys. All right, so that's a wrap for me. I'm going to pass it to my colleague Lawrence. Lawrence, take it away.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Dahan. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Lawrence. I'm the product manager for our Cloud Managed Switch line. Today, I'm actually going to take a little trip back in time, take a look at some history, so bear with me here. So for those of you on the webinar, what do you think Quarters and Meraki APs have in common? And feel free to type your answer in the Q&A window. We're really curious to see what kind of answers we get with this. But the real story here is in the early days of Meraki, you guys all see the great user interface that we have. The experience of using dashboards is phenomenal. But if you pay attention to the hardware itself, we actually take quite a bit of care and time and effort into making our hardware beautiful as well. Even if it's hardware like switches that may be seen once, installed in a network closet, and may not be seen again. But that said, when we built our first APs, we wanted to get customer feedback in terms of even something as simple as the heft and weight of the APs. So we actually experimented by adding quarters to these APs until they felt right to the majority of the people we handed them to. So it's the little details that really matter to us here. And so when you think about how this applies to things like switching, it's also about what do screwdrivers and switches have in common? Well, with the Meraki switches, if you take a look at the front of our traditional 24 and 48 port switches, you'll notice that we have the integrated rack mount built into the switch itself. So the goal for us when we built these switches was for you as the IT admin to be able to install these switches in under 5 minutes with just a simple screwdriver. And I also show you a picture of the 8-port switch down below. And if you've never seen one of these in person, the bottom right-hand corner actually shows you what's underneath. There's also these built-in, flaps that you can extend out so you can easily wall mount this specific switch. So it really is about the little details that matter when it comes to, the hardware that we built. So how does that extend to everything else? It really is about the customer experience. So it's about the hardware and the user experience. All this combined together matters to us. So what does this mean for switches specifically? Well, let's talk about a upcoming UI change that our customers are going to see in Dashboard. So for those of you who ever used a feature like, let's say our new clients view, you may have seen this on the access points page. This subtle change from this view that shows you the status of your access point, the name of your access points, the connectivity, what switch and port it's connected to. Well, it's been modified and cleaned to look like this. It's a subtle change, but this is based on iterations and feedback that we receive from our users. Now, this type of subtle change happens frequently within the dashboard experience, but sometimes we take a more dramatic approach when it makes sense. And in this case, we are going to do so with the port mirror feature on the Meraki MS switches. So if you ever use the port mirror feature, you'll know that you can find this under the network-wide settings page. So this is a settings page where you can configure things like spanning tree priority, quality of service, and of course port mirror. And the user interface today, you simply select the switch, the destination and source ports, and you keep adding as many mirrors as you please. Now, while this makes sense once you're able to find this on the page, finding this page itself takes a little bit of effort. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our users that it's not as intuitive as we would like in terms of where this is actually placed. So to that end, we'll be releasing over the next couple of months, where this page is located and how it actually looks if you need to configure a mirror port. So let's take a look at how we simplify it. So first off, if you go to the new port mirror page, if you go back to the network-wide settings, you'll see that we'll have a message for you saying that port mirroring is now moved over to the switch ports page. Why the switch ports page? Well, it makes more intuitive sense. If you think about going to configure your switch ports, being able to select them, being able to edit them, being able to create link aggregate pairs, why wouldn't you want to also be able to create a port mirror from this very page as well? So one thing you'll notice here is you're going to see 2 additional options at the very top of the screen. You're going to have the option for mirror and unmirror. In this case, we're selecting 2 simple ports that we want to mirror together. And if we click the mirror button, it's going to pop up a new dialog box that will show you a create port mirror page where you simply see the ports that you selected and you pick the destination port on that given switch where you want to create the mirror for. And once you create port mirror, that's pretty much it. The only other addition that we added to Dashboard is an easy way in this ports page to really see what ports are being mirrored from and to. So now you hit the little plus button in that column checkbox, and then you can add a new mirror column to see the status of your port mirror. So it's these things from the subtle changes in how we design our hardware to the weight and feel of it, to subtle changes in the user experience and things like our details page for listing access points to switches, to more dramatic changes in things like how we move user interface elements like port mirror. these are the things that we continue to iterate on across all our products. So we're really excited to introduce this to you. And like I said, we're going to be rolling this out to our customers over the next few months here. Now, before I transition it to my lovely colleague here, June, I just want to see if there are any questions that we can help answer. So give me a second and we'll take a look. Okay, so looks like people are a little bit quiet today. No worries. I'm going to give June more time to talk about some great Systems Manager updates. Thanks.
Thank you, Lawrence. Hi, everyone. My name is June. I am the Product Manager for Systems Manager, which Colin very nicely introduced. I thought maybe we shouldn't even talk about anything because he gave us a really good plug, but here we are. So I want to start first by doing a quick recap on Systems Manager Sentry, which we spoke of in the last quarterly. Systems Manager Sentry is a set of features that do things such as granular policy management for the network stack. So think about, say, you're in an organization and you want to ensure that devices are interacting with the network, not just in a black and white, you can come in or not come in way, but perhaps you can come in this context depending on how you look. We make life very, very simple for admins when it comes to things like that. Wi-Fi security, highest tier of Wi-Fi security. Colin had mentioned certificate management. We can automatically generate certificates, and that means that we remove the burden of managing certificates for admins and the burden for users who are subjected to the certificates. Why is this important? Oftentimes, when one wants to do granular policy management in an organization, they have to invest in security appliances, which often causes, first of all, it's a separate device you have to add into your network on top of the wireless and firewall switches, what have you. And those things are typically very expensive, and they also are quite complex. So while many customers will make investments in them, oftentimes they do not use them. We make that very, very easy. And what we're doing is having this transition from the end device being something that just shows up in a network that the network needs to see. And then we transition from that to know what the posture of the device is. And now we're saying end devices are actually part of the network. They're not this separate thing. You know, this idea of having separate mobility teams and security teams and wireless teams in an organization is beginning to be an aging idea. After all, the weakest point in your network is the endpoint. Well, or really maybe the people, organization, but who own the devices. But
like Colin has software.
but yeah, the end devices are very, very important. So if one cares about security, this is not something to be separated. And we have a really great story for that. There is a Systems Manager Sentry video on YouTube for those of you who are interested in a refresher or have not seen it before. I'm going to try to not bog you down with details because a lot of you on the quarterly were also here last quarter. And actually, before I transition, just very quickly another plug for ETLS, highest tier of wireless security. The certificate authority thing, it takes days to weeks to months to never to implement ETLS for most organizations. With us, you can do it in very few minutes, sometimes in as quick as 5 minutes. Just something to think about there. All right, so to new things. Last week was a big week for Apple and for us as well. Apple introduced iOS 9. We had support for it out of the gate. And last month, when we were in Las Vegas for sales kickoff, we got this sort of surprise visit from Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. So Cisco and Apple are working together to make Apple devices work better for enterprise users. I mean, that is good news for us and for organizations as well. As you know, we support multiple platforms on Systems Manager, from Apple devices to Windows devices to Android. Very, very great support for Apple. Apple has done a really, really good job, and with this partnership that we're working together on, we're already good friends from before. We're hoping that even now we can be even more integrated. And this is not just for Systems Manager. This is for a partnership across the stack. So that includes the wireless and firewalls and so on. So I want to walk you through some of the things that are exciting about iOS 9. A lot of them customers have been asking for quite a while, and then some of them are just new innovations from Apple. Sometimes simple things like changing the wallpaper of a device, right? So when a corporation owns a device or a school is issuing devices, sometimes they don't want, say, students in the school's case to download funny pictures, in the back of a device. These things, they may seem very small, but it turns out they actually matter. We've seen a lot of requests for them. The Apple Watch is obviously one of the new devices in the Apple portfolio. Now we can pair Apple Watches with Apple phones and iPads and so on. There's a new news app. But then in terms of the bigger problems in organizations, oftentimes they're around deploying devices. So imagine a scenario where an organization or a school has bought 1,000 devices that they want to distribute to their employees or their students. There are programs there that enable one to maybe automatically deploy them. But even then, they're still quite heavy-handed. So there's something Apple is doing now. So this has to do with something called the Volume Purchase Program, which is a program for buying applications in the Apple Store that you can then push automatically to devices. In the past, admins have had to use usernames or send the applications based on usernames. If I'm the end user, I can have more than one Apple ID. And if I have the wrong Apple ID or the admin has the wrong Apple ID for me, I will not get the enterprise application or custom application that they're trying to send to me. It's particularly problematic. So now that will be done, the device association will be done with the device ID rather than username. It's a very, very, very big deal. It's quite a big deal. And then there are things like just more security on Apple devices. If you're using Touch ID now with the iPhone 6, there's a 6-digit passcode instead of 4. That's for the end user's protection. And then there are also changes for content protection. So there's something called AirDrop. You can think of AirDrop as just kind of like a projector, like an Apple virtual projector. And you can share applications wirelessly from an Apple device onto the projector, if you will. What the change that's made now is that for certain protected applications on the device, you cannot share them, which means that you cannot leak applications or information that the organization does not want you to leak. And then the Volume Patches program that I mentioned is now in 26 countries, which is great. Initially, there are countries that could not access that. And then lastly, a quick discussion on managed versus unmanaged applications. I'll give an example of a use case. Again, with an enterprise application, let's say I want some of our employees to use email on their devices or Salesforce, right? And let's say the employee took it upon him or herself to download those applications. We want to containerize those applications so that if something happens to the device and we need to remove the applications, we can do so easily. But we obviously also want to protect the end user's private applications. Apple has created the ability to convert unmanaged applications, so the applications the end user would have proactively downloaded were actually for the organization. This means that, again, data for the organization is more protected. We have an iOS 9 webinar that we ran on Tuesday, 2 days ago. You can find that on YouTube. It's called What's New with iOS 9 and Systems Manager. It goes into far more detail about the changes. And then we're also running quite regular sessions for the education sector and also for people interested in security. We've done a lot of work, some of you may recall from last quarter, on just focusing on the classroom experience for teachers who need administration rights but do not necessarily want everything that the network admin has. We have a webinar for that called Teacher's Assistant. Please enroll if you're interested in that. And then the Systems Manager sent security features that I mentioned to you, automatic deployment. We also have a webinar specific for that. Sign up. They're pretty regular, every few weeks. All right, that is it from me. This is a picture of some of our Systems Manager team members, and as always, we thank you for being not just interested in us, but also using our product. Simon?
All right. Thank you very much, June. Well, we've certainly done a great job of getting through the teams very quickly today. We have had a lot of questions coming in, I can tell you. One thing I should have stressed right at the very beginning is, as you may know, Meraki does not discuss roadmap or futures. And so I think about 95% of the questions that have come in are related to features you would love to see, and it's really nice to see that there's so much enthusiasm to get more capability added into the portfolio, but it's not something that we're going to be able to discuss on this particular session. The good news is that we do have absolutely some new updates coming up, and towards the end of October we're going to be back in touch with you guys with more information about what's coming next from Meraki. I can't tell you any more than that right now, but as you know, with Meraki we will be absolutely continuously innovating this solutions, this portfolio, to give you the latest feature set that we possibly can. So stay in touch. Obviously, you can see the details on the screen here. We have got a little bit of time for Q&A, so what I'll do is we'll do a quick scan through some of the questions, grab the managers who are still in the room, and try and get those answered for you. So looks like we have a question here about Systems Manager Sentry.
Yeah, let me take this one from Anthony Anzalone. Hi, Anthony. The question is Sentry different from the Systems Manager licenses? No. If you have a Systems Manager license, you get everything. We do not do tiered pricing. We do not do tiered features. So if you have that now, it is good to go.
I'll jump in here with a quick question on BLE beacons that can be managed by the MR32 and MR72, which are our indoor and outdoor 2x2 11AC APs. We have very good relationships with a number of beacon vendors, folks like Estimote and Radius Networks and Onyx Beacons, and we've shared technical documentation, and essentially we have the technical capability to remotely manage those beacons in terms of configuration, firmware updates. I haven't built that capability into the APs right now because there hasn't been a substantial enough commercial uptake of beacons. Everybody's in proof of concept mode. And so that's why it's perfect for working with a variety of beacon partners, and when the particular customer has chosen what the right solution is, then that's a perfect time for us to talk about how quickly and what type of integration makes sense. And there are several steps we can take along the way to make it as seamless as possible. But I think the key there is that we have these close relationships with those folks.
Just a quick comment on beacons as well. I put up a blog post a couple of days ago on our website, very simple example, and I'm probably going to do a couple more of these. The idea, they're not so much aimed at you guys who I think are the real experts that we rely on every day to help us with our customers, but it's really to try and fire the imagination of the customers who may still be sort of a little bit new to thinking in terms of using these beacons and how they can be advantageous to them. So you could by all means try and point them towards that blog post, and we'll also try and get a few more examples out there. We may even have a little contest for whatever cool ideas people can come up with for how to make best use of these beacons. All right, we're just scanning the questions here, see if there are any other good ones to share with you guys. Bear with us a second.
Let me answer a quick question on Systems Manager website filtering. You can filter websites on Systems Manager without the MX. Of course, the MX does have sort of more granular categorized URL filtering, if you will. So if that's what the customer needs, yes, then a firewall is useful for that. But if there are particular websites that you want to blacklist, you can list them on there. Same thing for whitelist as well.
All right, we're back in list scanning mode again. Bear with us a moment.
Ah, softball question. How do you delete a network? Simon, surely you know the answer to that. Putting you on the spot. It involves the overview page.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you asked the question, Matt. So, as I'm sure all of you know, we just got a question about how to delete a network. The good news is we've made that so much easier nowadays. So if you go to the network overview page, you can just pull out a tab from the right-hand side and literally just select your networks one at a time. Do this carefully, of course, and you can then go right ahead and delete the networks if you wish to. Obviously, this is very useful in a lab situation. Do be careful in a production environment, of course. Thanks for the question, Matt.
Yeah, there's, of course, an apocryphal story about one of those product specialists who was doing a killer demo on the Meraki corporate network and deleted the Meraki corporate network. I don't know if that's really true or not. That must have been way before my time, and you know that guy probably doesn't work here anymore, I'm guessing.
Well, let's hope everyone else has better luck. Let's see. There's another question really around, I think, for those who have their Cisco SEs, but they may need additional documentation questions answered on Meraki. How do they get in touch? Well, it's very simple. You have a Meraki rep that you can work with. They can put you in touch with a technical resource like one of our SEs if they need to help you with additional technical questions. And they'll feed that back to us as a product team. So if we have a need to enhance our documentation, we will definitely keep that in mind.
All right, one last look through the questions, and I think we'll wrap things up here. Just bear with us a moment. Again, it's lots of questions about please would you add this feature, and I think this is probably a good time to wrap things up. So the time of our product managers is obviously very precious. We really do appreciate them taking some time out to spare with us today. Let's get them back to work so they can get you some new products to try to meet that demand. So thank you very much indeed for your time and attention today. Really appreciate you attending the webinars again with us and continuing to support Meraki. Do send the feedback in. We do love hearing from you and want to make sure these quarterlies are useful to you. Remember what I said, no future stuff, but everything else is fair game. So just send me some feedback and we will be back in 2016 with a fresh quarterly. So thanks again for joining and bye-bye for now.